Hello and welcome to Gifted, Talented and Able. You'll notice that I've put question marks after gifted, talented and able. This is because sometimes it's a little bit of a controversial subject. Is there even such a thing? Well, let's have a look and find out. My name's Andrew. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. My name's Andrew Whitehouse. I delivered a TEDx, From Disability to Superpowers, which is a fascinating investigation into some of the things that people with neurodiversities can do that people without neurodiversities may not be able to do. More recently, I've delivered a second TEDx, which was Ideas from Isolation, which was filmed during the COVID-19 lockdown. I'm a Bamford lecturer creating autism-friendly audiology clinics. I deliver short courses for Bishop Grosseteste University in Lincoln and the University of Lincoln, as well as many other organisations, including Harlow Education Consortium, London Borough of Sutton, Flintshire Council, and loads of others. I'm a forensic special educational needs and disability consultant, which means I work in the courts as an expert witness, impartial on SEND court cases. I do training, observations, and I'm a keynote speaker at multiple conferences. I'm guessing really the thing that is most important to you is that I do the work that I do actually in the schools, because my work is very much based as a combination of probably 30% academic research and 70% actual boots on the ground work. If you want to be in touch with me, I'm at Facebook, Andrew Whitehouse at People First Education. I'm at Twitter, Andrew WSEN, Instagram, Andrew WSEN. I'm on LinkedIn. And you can email me, andrew@peoplefirsteducation.com, and on my website there is a contact form. So I'm pretty hard to lose. And I'm actually always pleased to hear from people who've been at one of my events or a course or a conference or anything like that. Please do get in touch. We're all friends, right? Now, learners of all abilities are routinely taught in inclusive classroom settings that are not designed exclusively for the educational needs of the brightest students. This means that teachers need to develop a broad range of strategies to provide suitable opportunities and learning experiences to challenge and stretch the more able. Gifted and talented learners respond well to high expectations and high cognitive challenge. However, cognitive challenge and stretch is not provided by increasing a learner's workload, but by enhancing the complexity. Teachers are therefore need to acknowledge this and provide personalised learning tailored to the needs of the individual. So what we're saying is, and I can remember this at school, I don't think I would describe myself as gifted and talented or able, but what I would do is I would finish my work often quite a lot quicker than other children, and rather than get a task that took me to a different level, I would just get more of the same. It is not about giving more of the same. We need to provide personalised learning tailored to the needs of the individual. So, what makes the learning environment beneficial for a gifted and talented learner? One that promotes independence, inquiry and collaboration, and offers stretch and challenge. And challenge is a big thing that we're going to be talking about on this workshop. Now, the education of a child should be directed to the development of the child's personality, talents, and mental and physical abilities to their fullest potential. Now, you'd think that was an Ofsted quote, but no, that was the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, Article 29. Having said that, by the way, they're slightly further up than Ofsted. Having said that, the new Ofsted framework does actually reflect this more closely now, and actually meeting the needs of individual children has become a priority for Ofsted. So this is particularly pertinent to the way we teach now. Another quote for you: your human mind, overstretched to a new idea, never goes back to its original dimensions. That was Oliver Wendell Holmes. Now, Oliver Wendell Holmes was a great educationalist and did lots and was involved in lots and lots of reform. And I would agree to him. Once you get those ideas in your head, they will never go away. So, here's a little activity for you. What have all these people got in common? So I'm going to read out a list of names. There's Albert Einstein, John Lennon, Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, Coco Chanel, Charles Dickens and Ray Kroc. And when I deliver these courses at Bishop Grosseteste University, there's usually somebody who says, "Who the hell is Ray Kroc?" Well, we'll come to that. But let's pause. I'll let you pause for a second and see if you can tell me what these people all had in common. Okay, Ray Kroc, by the way, developed the Big Mac. So that, who the hell is Ray Kroc? So, I'm sure some of you will know that all these people failed in school. All these people failed in school. So, most interesting of all of these, I think, was Michael Jordan, who was actually not allowed on, or either thrown off or not allowed on the basketball team. So all of these people failed in school. Who failed? One could easily argue that it was actually the school system failed them, not them failing at school, especially with the talents they had. So a quick reminder, pub quiz question, if it ever comes up, who was Ray Kroc? He invented the Big Mac. And here are all our friends with, you know, the more obvious, our more obvious images of those. Ray Kroc, by the way, is in the bottom right-hand corner. So a few others for you: Thomas Edison, Bill Gates, Walt Disney, Richard Branson, Charles Dickens, Winston Churchill, Stephen Fry, and Isaac Newton. All did not achieve at school in the way that you would expect them to. So here we go. Here's another little activity for you. Is a constant trouble to everybody and is always in some scrape or another. Would be very good pupil if she lived in this world. She has staying power. She has no staying power, sorry. Indolent and illiterate. He has glaring faults, and they have certainly glared at us this term. This boy will never get anywhere in life. Fairly responsible adult who might go far. He must learn tact without losing his outspokenness. Why don't you see if you can match those ones up? That's another little directed task for you, and we'll pause now. Okay, well, it's been a long time since I've looked at these. I can remember most of them. She would be a very good pupil if she lived in this world. That was Judi Dench. Indolent and illiterate, I think, was Roald Dahl. No, sorry, no, I think. Yes, it was. I think it was. No, it was. Yes, it was. She has no staying power. Was Margaret Thatcher. In constant trouble, I think that might have been either Roald Dahl or Stephen Fry. Really can't remember. The John Lennon one. This boy will never get anywhere in life. I particularly like that. Of course, famously his aunt said to him, "The guitar's all right as a hobby, but you'll never make any money out of it." But anyway. And Jeremy Paxman was, he must learn tact without losing his outspokenness. Anyway, irrespective of who they were matched to, and to be honest, I lost the list years ago. What we do know is that these people did incredibly well, despite the school system, which probably failed them. Guess what? Schools and what they provide can radically inhibit natural abilities in learning as well as extending them. And one particularly scathing reflection of school was the Pink Floyd video "The Wall." You know, where the young man Pink writes the poem. He's caught writing poems in class, and his teacher takes the poem off him and ridicules him in front of the class. So the laddie considers himself a poet, does he? Yeah, they can do that. Then there's myself. This was a school report of mine. Apart from reading, Andrew pays little or no interest in any of his schoolwork. Blah, 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 blah. 1973. My father, on receiving this school report, made me write it out repeatedly. Just write it out word for word by way of a punishment. Because all I would do was read. You can imagine later years they'd say, Andrew pays a great interest in literature, but not in those days. And if you see, I've got a few letters after my name now. you get those by reading to the greater extent. So, you know, it can inhibit. So we've also got what some call, I've taken bright learner from a variety of texts. It's not the word I choose, but it seems to be the words that are used more often in texts about gifted, talented and able. Bright learner or gifted and talented and able, what's the difference? Let's have a little look, shall we? So, the bright learner knows the answers, but the gifted learner asks the questions. The bright learner is interested. The gifted learner is curious. And it goes on like this, taking these things at a further stage, you know, grasps the meaning or draws inferences. I'm not going to read all these out to you, but you can see where we're going with this, that actually, that actually there is a difference between those children who stand out for maybe being that little bit more advanced than the others, to those that may be gifted, talented and able. So what is gifted and talented? Well, I've got a list here. Those who achieve or have the ability to achieve at a level significantly in advance of the average for their year group. So the gifted, those who exhibit high ability across more or one subject areas. Talented, those who excel in a specific area, socially or in terms of leadership, sport, performing arts, design and technology. So what we're saying is the definition is that the gifted child might be displaying this, presenting with this across a range of subjects. So the gifted, those who exhibit high ability across one or more subject areas, whereas the talented will come to in a little while. Now we're in strange times again, because children are able to learn more outside school than at any other time in human history. And you may remember, some of you old folks like me, I was described as the wise old man of the internet today, which I thought was quite funny. Yes, you know, in my house there were books. There were lots and lots of books, and there was a Encyclopedia Britannica in multiple volumes, bright red covers along a shelf, probably bought from a person who sold them door to door, and that was all we had. Well, I say all we had, we thought it was incredible. The encyclopedia had everything in it, but in actual fact, compared to what we've now got with the internet, it was a speck of sand in the desert. So you know, the children now, they can do so much more. Talented, those who excel in a specific area, as again, either socially in terms of leadership, sport, performing arts, design, technology. So Mozart, for example, Mozart there, he excelled in a specific area. He was very, very good at music. He understood music. But that was it. There is no evidence to say, or none that I'm aware of, that Mozart could do anything else. Whereas Professor Brian Cox he has exceptional skills in sciences. He's an exceptional presenter on television. He knows about history, and he's a musician, and that's the difference. So, what about standardised tests? Well, often young people do well on these tests, but not always. Don't put too much reliance on them. You know, quite often the questions are too the answers might be too involved for a standardised test. I, for example, struggled to fill in my passport documents, the form to get a passport, because some of the questions were very ambiguous. But to a lot of people, those questions weren't ambiguous. It was a good, straight yes or no answer. But you see, the trouble is, if you're a person that thinks, then sometimes you think that little bit deeper, and you think too much and you can't answer the question. So standardized tests may actually be failing these children, and you do get a lot of people who fail in school, fail their exams, because they can't actually access standardized testing. So, for gifted and talented, what are we looking out for? We need a wide vocabulary, children who say more things in different ways, excellent reading ability, usually, inveterate curiosity, a questioning attitude. I can remember in my teaching experience, I only really had one child that I would put was really at this level, and she was a young girl in year three, and she was very, very difficult to teach, because if you were teaching poetry, for example, I was teaching from a particular poetry book, the next thing you knew, she got herself a copy of this poetry book. The ability for sustained concentration when the subject interests them, very much the case that a lot of these young people will not engage when it's not of interest to them. A preference for complex thought, ability with abstract thought, and often prefer the company of older people, difficulty socialising with peers. Now, there's a certain element of that whereby hang on, sorry. Yeah, there's a certain element of that whereby we'd have some comparisons with autism, which is very similar. Difficulty associating with peers, often enjoys the company of adults more. So other things that to look out for: memory, ability to retain and transfer information, a quirky, odd sense of humour. I've put a video link here for you. It's from The Big Bang Theory, and it's a very good explanatory clip of Sheldon Cooper, who we all know is gifted, talented and able, and his sense of humour. Language play and puns, challenging behaviour when bored or frustrated, often quite mimicking behaviours, and also quite trying to humiliate teachers. Ability to make links between abstract concepts. We also might see a dislike of perceived failure when they think they've not done well enough. You do see that a lot. Inability to accept being wrong. A vivid imagination. Impatient with tasks that they feel lack purpose. And so if they don't see the point of it, then they're not going to want to do it. A wide general knowledge. Preferring individual work rather than collaborative, and impatience with those who think process less quickly. Let's pause there and let the poor producer of this film turn his chair around and put it down, because he's terrified of making a noise. So there we go. You all right then? Yeah. He's done very, very well. Okay, yeah, and getting kind of cross with people who they don't think are on their level or don't work at their sort of level. So I have a son that falls into this category, and he wanted to learn how to play the guitar, and I've been playing. I think this was. I'll ask him. What year was it you got your guitar?
2016.
2016. So I'd been playing since about 1977. He picked it up in 2016, and he had it for Christmas. And I think by the end of January, he probably could play everything I could play. And when I used to say to him, "What's your biggest problem, son?" he would always say it was his teachers, because they didn't extend his knowledge in a way that he would have wanted to do. So, what's your biggest problem, son? Teachers. Anxiety in I just can't do enough. And that is related to impatience, and worse still for a gifted and talented person, inability. Inability drives them crazy. If they can't do something, it will drive them nuts. So you've got to ask yourself, when have you ever noticed this, and are you seeing this in the classroom? Are you seeing these behaviour problems, impatience, inability, anxiety, and a real kind of dislike of the teachers and rudeness to the teachers or the teaching. You also have to remember that when it comes to development, however bright he or she may be, they're still young. And a lot of teachers have an unease at teaching people whose intellectual abilities are above their own. But you have to remember these children need to learn socially and emotionally, not just academically. But let's go back to that second point. Yeah, it's harder to teach somebody who knows more than you or perceives to know more than you. And we've got to let go of the teaching a lot in that. We've got to let them have that teaching. We've got to let them find their own ways sometimes. It might be a heck of a lot more self-initiated learning for these children. Collaborative learning can be very, very difficult. Again, I've got another video. It's Professor Cooper again. I'd love you to watch this. It's about collaborative learning. I think you'll enjoy it. And that has a knock-on effect to leadership and negotiation. Often there's no right or wrong. They will struggle with this. And they may also find that learning from mistakes, being an essential part of learning, actually isn't the way they'd like things to be. Quite often they like to get things right the first time. And so that's, again, something we need to consider. So we're looking at creativity now. Now, creativity, how do you define creativity? I would define creativity like this, that when you do something different to what your teacher expects from you, but you do it well. Yeah? And they say, oh, okay. Now, that was very interesting because I remember I was studying a biology A-level, and the biology tutor told me all about a student that had never shown up. He'd never met the student, but what the student had done was taken the module booklets, looked at the success criteria, and just created his own answers, whereas the rest of us had got to write essays. But in actual fact, he had passed all the criteria and he passed his biology A-level. Creativity is something you've done which is unique or individual. It's completely new and different. Creativity is about creating something unexpected or expected in an unexpected way, or creating something very good in an unusual way. So that's what we're looking for in creativity. So here's a few strategies. We want to get a few strategies to get us going. One of the things I would say is you want to observe that individual in a particular subject or across a range of subjects. I would do both. Yeah. So if you find that this child is particularly gifted in geography, I would say, right, watch that child in geography, but let's see what they're doing in maths. You know, what sort of person are they? What sort of capacity? And you want to, if you're going to do this observation, then you want to have a pre-agreed focus. What are you actually looking for? There is absolutely no point going in to do an observation. I do at least 2 or 3 observations a week, and I will tell you now, I always ask, what do you want me looking for? Because the question I get, or the instruction I usually get is, I want you to look at a child. Well, I'm looking. You've got to actually have a focus. So interaction with peers, interaction with teacher tutor might be it, responses to questions, abilities to ask questions, concentration, frustration levels, and also, very importantly, the synergy of written and oral communication. What are the connections there? Other things, individual interviews with that child. You want to ask them their views on learning, their self-evaluation. How do they think they're doing? Not how you think. What do they think their learning's like? What do they think about their academic progress? And ask them about their friendship groups and their social emotional progress. You might want to get a questionnaire. Now, I've developed some questionnaires on this. I'm very happy to share them. But in actual fact, what I would say is you might do your own. So questionnaires, strengths and weaknesses in general learning, specific subject areas. So this allows them and us to allow opportunity to reflect on their interests, but also to celebrate successes outside. So you might want to know about what clubs they're going to, what they do in the evenings. You would even ask such questions as, you know, why do you go to these clubs? For example, I have 4 children and they go swimming on a Saturday morning. you would assume they like swimming. No, they go swimming on a Saturday morning because I make them go. Because I want them to be able to swim. Then you've got the able underachievers. Now this is hugely important. We should always be on the lookout for ability and talent, and of course this latent ability and talent. Able and underachiever, often described as lazy. This is the child that isn't engaging, and by not engaging, by not engaging, they're not achieving in the way that you might expect of them. Okay. So under those circumstances, a moderately able or contentious learner, anxious to please and succeed, might be mistaken as gifted and talented. Now, that's the very, very keen learner. Yeah, doesn't mean they're gifted and talented, just means they're very, very keen. And obviously this does want support, but it is a different type of support that we would be looking for them. And similarly, the disruptive learner, the one that doesn't like writing, the one that just cracks it off nice and easy for you, might actually be a person with real potential abilities. Now, as an adult with ADHD and as a person that works with people with autism, one of the big pieces of advice I give is you've got to let that person find their groove. There's something in there, and they need to let it out, and you have to facilitate that, and that's hugely important. And I'm certain for myself, it took me a long time to find my groove, but if you help them well into adult life, but if you help them find that groove, then you'll be pushing them in the right direction, and they might get there a little bit earlier. Able underachiever, presented as gifted and talented in many ways, but poor written work, unfinished, untidy. They've done the line of least resistance. They've just cracked it off quick as they can, bored, lethargic, just busting to get out. So, let's look at social and emotional mental health. This is my son when he was a lot younger, one of my sons, and on Come to School as Your Heroes Day, he went in as you can see, Einstein. That was kind of, I was worried about him. I thought people might give him a hard time, but they didn't. And whilst everyone else came in as famous footballers, etc., that was what he came in as. One day, I had a phone call from school. They said, "Your son's sick. Can you come and collect him?" It was, fortunately, it was a day I was working from home, and I drove and fetched him. There he was, sitting in the foyer, all sheepish looking. Got him in the car, and I drove up the street, and I said, "You all right, son?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "How sick are you?" He said, "I'm not." He said, "I just had to get out of that place." And this is what we don't want, and this is how some of our gifted, talented, and able children, they just can't stand it. They're just going, I just need to get out of here. So other presentations of the able underachievers: restless, inattentive, manipulative, WIFM, everyone's favourite radio station, what's in it for me? Disorganised, ability to float off, aware of other people's weaknesses, unwilling to show ability. This is another one you see a lot. So it's not cool to be good at school. And so, that's quite a difficult one to deal with, to encourage them to use their abilities, and mood swings. So, what is it we need? We need a broad and balanced curriculum that meets individual needs, interests and aspirations, allowing them to reach potential. Interests, aspirations taken directly from needs, interests, aspirations taken directly from Ofsted. Focusing on able, gifted and talented can raise expectations of others and can raise achievements of others. Again, removing ceilings. So I know when I was a teacher, I used to go for the hardest stuff and bring it down. I didn't start at the low level, I started at the high level, and you could really get a lot of young people, not just your identified GTA children, doing a lot better. You need to identify it within the context of your organisation, not national. Yeah. different places have different needs, different schools are different. So you've got to be the one, you've got to make that decision in the context of your own organisation. You need a range of strategies. You need to develop socially and emotionally, allow them to do that as well. The social things, overcome the barriers to learning and be aware of potential underachievers, able, gifted and talented kids that might well be able to do more than they're actually doing. So ask yourself this question, and we can pause for a bit. How is provision being made for able, gifted and talented? And before we move on, David Beckham apparently is also a gifted fencer. Not putting up fences, I'm talking about the thing with, I'm going to say swords, but they're called foils, I knew that. So how is provision being made for able, gifted and talented? Have a chat to yourself. You can even forward that information to me. Okay, welcome back. I hope you had some thoughts about this. What about maths? Maths has to have challenge, enticement, needs to bring them in, needs to want to know, excitement and a purpose. I've put a really good link to Tez there for about maths investigations. I just think you'd like to try it yourself, because this I thought was a really good activity that really could draw you in. So you can either have a look at it now, we can pause, or you can look at it later when you get a bit more time. But I would prefer you look at it now, just so that you can keep up to date with the way we're going with this workshop. I've also put some Mensa brain teasers there for you. Some of them look so simple, but so difficult, certainly for me anyway. But again, the sort of thing that you might want to be doing with your young people. I've also got this article here that I thought you might look at. Gifted in Maths, 6 ways to keep your high achievers engaged. So have a little look at that. It's still there. I've checked it. So I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was very, very good. Now, how do we group children? So there are 4 real ways of doing this. There's setting, streaming, mixed ability, fast tracking and withdrawal. So setting is obviously when you set people for different activities. So you might have them in maths together, but they'd be in a different group for English and things like that. Streaming is when you get those that may be very good at maths and maybe one other thing, but not everything, and you put that ability. So if you're in top set maths, you don't really like all that, but then you would be in top set everything if you were streaming. That basically is the assumption that you have the capacity, the capacity to be good at anything if you're good at those. Now, where the setting falls down is that you might not be achieving quite so high in one subject, but if you were put in with other learners that are in a higher group of that subject, it might draw you up. Mixed ability, this is where you would be obviously different abilities in either subjects or across the board work together. And that says that the more able ones bring the other ones up with them, and the less able ones gain from being with their peers who are more able. And then fast tracking, withdrawal, I'd say maybe moving them up a year and things like that. So we've got those different grouping options. What I would like to do is look at each one individually. Okay, so the setting, obviously we have the learning targeted to ability levels. We still need a certain amount of differentiation, although a lot of people who do setting don't do that. It must be flexible. So if you get a subject like maths, for example, maths within maths covers probably another 20 or 30 subjects. You know, maths is a very diverse subject, and so you might be moving up and down with that. It usually doesn't happen. Benefits, the downfalls, I'm going to ask you to have a little think about the benefits and the downfalls. We'll pause and then we'll move on to streaming. Streaming, again, grouping learning by ability, blanketed across all subjects, all rounders we're calling these. What are the benefits, downfalls? Discuss. Mixed ability allows more able to model and extend others. Needs strong differentiation. Yes, it really does. You need to be able to trust your gifted, talented, able learners to bring those other ones along with them, rather than leave them behind. Academically, socially, emotionally, there's a lot of thoughts to be had there. What are the benefits? What are the downfalls? Fast tracking, sitting the GCSE a year early. Obviously, you have some peer issues there. Effect on low ability left behind. I see that less, and the social emotional knock on. What are the benefits? What are the downfalls? I'll leave that with you just for a moment. Okay, well, I'm hoping that you've kind of come up with some really. I'll go back again. Really good sort of examination into these things. But what I will say is, I've found that a mix of these would be the best way to do this. Instead of just sticking with one type of classing, go across all 4 of those and see which ones benefit at certain times, and mix it up a bit. And fast tracking and withdrawal is slightly different, although you might move a child on for one subject. It has timetabling knock-on effects. What I will say is, I used to have what I would call ability, mixed ability, and what I called friendship groups, which weren't really friendship groups. They were children that I just knew got on well and didn't fall out. So okay, and sorry, got on well. I don't mean didn't fall out. They got on well and could help each other in a group. So kind of didn't fall out. Now, lots and lots of extracurricular stuff going on. Doesn't matter how much extracurricular you do or enrichment, the classroom is the king. You can in many cases, you don't have to worry too much about what the primary school curriculum when it comes to teaching add-ons at home, but when because most of us can manage primary level knowledge across all subjects, and if we don't, we can go and speak to teachers and support staff and get some ideas on how we can support our children. But by the time we get to secondary, the subjects are getting more complex, and unless you know those subjects or then you're going to struggle. So classroom is the king, and so we need to know, but we still need to know what they're doing outside of school. So this was just when I put this together. This was what my own children were doing. It looks a lot, but bear in mind there are 4 of them. Okay, and obviously we have to ask some questions before we even look at what they do. So, what are they doing outside school? Okay, what are they doing? Are they doing well? Yeah, they might be really not very good at it. And is it just for fun? Are you making them go? Dance, karate, guides, scouts, and a maths masterclass. Now, if we took my children, the dance stuff, I would suggest that I'm got to be careful in case my 2 daughters who enjoyed dance, they weren't what you'd call high flyers, but they liked it, so it was fun. Whereas karate, I took one of my sons along and I decided to join in myself. I enjoyed it. He didn't so much, but I kind of insisted he went. Pushy parent and all that. Guides. My teenage daughter defected from guides to scouts during a poacher conference, and maths masterclasses, which my son absolutely loves. But you need to know this information about all the children that you work with. Did you know that Elvis Presley was a black belt in karate? He learned it in the army, and that he even featured on the front cover of a national karate magazine in the 1970s, and made a karate tuition video, which was released a couple of years ago. So we would say that's a man with many, many talents. On site, drama club, it might be sports, choir, computer club, music, debating, chess, etc., etc., etc. Why are they attending these? Well, you know, I shamefully, not that shamefully, would say that my children used to go to a club called Free Childcare Club. In other words, sometimes we'd put the children into these clubs after school because they were a free club or for very cheap, and it would save us a little bit of childcare. But yeah, you know, but then equally, maybe not everyone's as cynical as me. That they might be there. They might be there to because they like it. This is the man that invented what the Americans call suspenders. We call them braces. Okay, I wonder if we should pause and let you think about who this man is. And I'm going to ask our producer here, who invented braces? Okay, let's pause. Welcome back. You're absolutely right. It was Mark Twain who wrote Huckleberry Finn and all those things. So he also invented braces. There's quite a few of these little things that you find out about people. Who knew? Where would we be without Mark Twain? With our trousers around our ankles, that's for sure. We need to widen things up. So we want links with primary schools, running masterclasses. We links with higher education, taster sessions, scout and guide leading, any other things that you can think of. Please pause now and do that. Welcome back. We need constant reinforcement of how well these children are doing. Positive comments, merits, points, certificates, additional responsibilities, outdoor learning, free choosing time, ICT, informing parents of the positive, options of interest, choice of work, field trips. Not all of these things. What I'm trying to say is when you're putting in reinforcement strategies, pick one that meets their needs because not everyone's the same. Informing parents is fun when you ring up and I don't know, I've answered that phone call. Hello. Oh, what's he done? No, well, he's done something good this time. Creating challenge. The heart of inclusion. Set suitable learning challenges. Actively engage in overcoming any potential barriers to learning. Respond to diverse needs. And we're back to meeting the needs, interests and aspirations. So to create challenge, we want to set high expectations. Yeah, give those learners the confidence that they can achieve. Establish what they know and build on it. So you're getting your base level in there. Structure, pace learning to make it challenging and enjoyable and inspire learning through passion. Making learners active partners is very, very important, and to develop learning skills and personal qualities. So, metacognition. What is it? Metacognition is the awareness of teacher and pupil language, vital to ensure we meet the needs of able learners. Learners need linguistic tools to be aware of their thinking process, and high ability learners have a high ability to reflect on their own thinking processes. We want to pull that in. How did you do that? What was the process there? I want you to tell me the process, because that went well and we can do that thing again in the near future. Metacognition is the need to self-evaluate and monitor your thinking. How did I do this? How am I going to do it again? We're learning transferable skills then. This will give them the understanding of the importance of perseverance and applying new skills in different circumstances. This is really important stuff you're going to need. Learning needs to be overt, not implicit. Now, I'm very much about the explicit. I don't really approve of implicit learning, particularly in autism. And bearing in mind, although it's not always the case, that is a myth, many of our autistic children will be explicit learners. Learners need to experience failure as part of their learning process. They need to learn how to learn. This happens to me all the time. Are they ready to learn? Not are they learning, but are they ready to learn? And part of that is knowing how. We need a range of strategies for thinking through and round, not just about. Remember, we never stop learning. Nobody has the answer to every question, and we're all learners together. 53 years old, I still love learning. We want to be looking at concept maps, mind maps. We want to be able to verbalise our thinking process, get them to tell you, I did this, I thought that, like a debrief. We have to be good at asking the right questions. We can't just let them, we want to be guiding them into this, and we want to be finding out, this will enable our teaching. This is important. KWL, what I know, what I want to know, and what I learn. What I know, what I want to know, what I learn. Helping them focus in metacognition. If we're looking at questioning, allow thinking time. Yeah. There's lots of ways of allowing questioning. Thinking time's a really important one. Not so long that it becomes frustration time. We want partner talking time. That's really helpful, particularly if you know that there's people that they bounce off really well. Extending ideas. Why do you think that? How did you arrive at that answer? Who else agrees? Why? Can you justify this? And what is your evidence? Those are really good questions, and you can use those ones really easily. So to justify, can we give, what's your evidence? Can you give me 3 reasons why we might think that? Don't close down questions. You don't need to know that now. I asked a question at a difficult time in a history lesson when I was a child, and they were talking about something or other. I don't know, because my mind was away in Sarajevo. I remember hearing it. Franz Ferdinand, as the history teacher to put it at the time, Franz Ferdinand was unfortunately shot in the Balkans, and he was shot in Sarajevo. And in the middle of a lesson, I just put my hand up, and the teacher said, "What do you want?" I said, "Where was Sarajevo?" And he went nuts. He was so angry with me. You don't need to know that now. Well, we don't have time to think about that now. We do need to know. We need ideas on how to find answers, and we need to pointers for research, or we need the answers. When a child is inquisitive, try to do your best to help them. Okay, I want you to zip over to YouTube again, and I want you to type in Inside the Mind of Jackson Coater. I want you to watch that video, and I want you to enjoy it. He's identified as gifted and talented. I believe he's 11 years old, and I would love you to watch the video. And then I've got a couple of bits to mention at the end. Okay. Most interesting thing in that video about Jackson Coater, and it was really good film to watch because you're learning about gifted and talented, how it works with certain children. The thing that struck me was Jackson can't tie his shoes. This is the sort of thing that frustrates me. If a child is that talented, that gifted, somebody should have taught him to tie his shoes. And there was a film documentary about the real Rain Man. And the thing that frustrated me the most about this was this man had this huge gift with mathematics, but someone was combing his hair for him. If you've got a person with an intelligence like that, he can be taught to comb his hair. Listening to able, gifted and talented learners, avoid asking more able learners to do more of the same just because they can. I said this right at the beginning. I'm saying it again now. Why should the able pupil be expected to write 4 pages when everyone else writes 2? We're back to what's in it for me, aren't we, again? Everyone's favourite radio station. Why should they complete another worksheet? And as I've said here, it's a major contributory factor towards disengagement. How to turn a child off, lesson 1. The biggest causes of discontent is too easy. Keeping them in their comfort zone and thinking that with thinking and problem solving. Most cruisers are aware that they're cruising. Come on, you know when you're not doing your best. I certainly do. We want to avoid questions that disallow wide-ranging inquiry or lateral thinking, and they at least need to know how to find an answer. And it's not all on Wikipedia. Too easy. Teaching to an agenda, a curriculum. You can't. You just can't. It doesn't work. I know we've got one. I know it's heavily engrossed in our education system, but ultimately, the unwillingness to digress from an agenda will turn children off. Banal homework. Can you imagine? I was dreadful when my children were young. I used to send it back to the school. So not doing it. Homework should fulfill a clear learning purpose, enable progress in acquisition of skills and knowledge, not just something you printed off wherever. I'm not going to mention the sites. Nothing wrong with the sites. It's overusing their resources. Crucial. How do you teach these kids? I've not told you yet. I've given you some ideas. Research. They need to develop their research skills. They need opportunities to undertake focused research on something they are interested in or are potentially interested in. Something that you think will turn them on. These learners are able to follow lines of inquiry that interest them, and they need to be taught how to research effectively. How do I find that out? Transform information they acquire for a specific purpose. So far, so good, right? A summary. Positively challenging, able, gifted and talented learners need to be integral to the everyday learning experience. These learners value opportunities to become fully engaged in their learning journey. They want to be engaged. These learners need to experience failure as an invaluable part of the learning process. You get it wrong, you don't let the same dog bite you twice. They need to know that there is no right or wrong answer. You need to enable learners to participate in activities that enable them to demonstrate their full abilities. Let them show off every now and again. This is what they're good at. We all love showing people what we're good at. You need to teach them the value of questioning. Let them practice questioning across the curriculum. Teach them how to question effectively. Let them know lines of inquiry will be opened up, not closed down. I'm interested. You ask me, I will engage with you. If I don't know the answer, we'll find out together. Enable discussion. And you need to target the higher order thinking skills. HOTS, the HOTS, not MOTS, more of the same. Enable original and creative thinking and model and extend language skills. What I'm talking by that is when you are talking to a child, do not dumb down the language. Don't dumb down the language. Make it important. Use those big words. The easiest way to access big words is to hear other people using them and contextualizing them. Gifted, talented, able is not an add-on. I was teaching at a school, and I think it was Sleaford one time. It was a private school, and that was the one thing that the Senko that said to me, "That's the bit I like best, Andrew. It's an integral part of learning and teaching." So use alternative recording methods. Any ideas or examples you have, please let me know. But we're doing recording, filming, getting other people to take notes, loads of things, having scribes, all sorts of different things. Set challenging targets which focus on what the learner needs to achieve to reach their next lever, which obviously is supposed to be level. Homework doesn't always have to be written. So, it can be going out and finding something out, looking around for something, looking up something on the internet, watching something on TV. What we don't want is more of the same. A photocopied PDF, same for every child. I believe that gifted and talented and able should do less and learn more. What do I mean by that? I mean it's not about how much you've put down on paper, it's how far you've investigated something. I think we should keep a portfolio of exemplary achievements so that we can show these children their own abilities and celebrate with them. Give them lots of opportunities to discuss challenging questions and higher order thinking skills in questions in all of the planning. Effective, gifted, talented, able provision will benefit everybody. Why? I'll tell you why. Because you're lifting everyone as they go along. That people will rise up to the challenge. Everybody is responsible for gifted, talented and able. And it should be on the agenda for all staff meetings. I firmly believe that SEN should be on the agenda for all staff meetings, and successes and failures should be on the agenda, and gifted, talented, able should certainly be on for staff meetings. So, directed task. Here you go. Gifted and talented gifted and talented able learners should be encouraged to enter national and international competitions. So reach for the stars. They should be encouraged to do all sorts of things. So what I'd like you to do, this is down to encouragement. I would like you to have a look at this letter. Okay, sorry, I've not got quite to the letter yet. Give your learners, right, yeah, so we want to be getting out, excuse me, I've got in a bit of a tiz here. Give your learners wider community experiences, universities, museums, libraries. Yeah, obviously. Right, there's the letter. So obviously my a couple of my slides got mixed up. I do apologise. Dear Professor Hawking, my name is Isaac Thompson Whitehouse and I'm 10 years old. I've read your book, Black Holes and Baby Universes, and I heard about your theories and I admire them. Also, very recently I was at school taking a lesson on 2D and 3D shapes, and I asked my teacher if time was one-dimensional. She did not know the answer, so I asked my granddad, but he didn't know either. So I've developed my own theory. You notice that this is my son and he didn't ask his father. He knew better than that. The sun is a star but one day blow into a black hole. This leads me into another part of my theory. If something isn't a dimension, it can't be sucked in. So if it gets sucked in, we will know it has a dimension. But how will we know how many dimensions it has? But the one way you do it is by seeing if it's destroyed. Then it means that it's one-dimensional because it is not as strong as three-dimensional. This brings me on to my next point. I used to think that time could be perpetual motion, but if it is one-dimensional, it would stop if it was sucked into a black hole. The main reason I'm writing you because I would quite like to know if my theories are correct. I'm looking forward to reading a brief history of time and seeing if I'm right about my theories. Yours sincerely. What would you do with a child like that in your classroom? That's your directed task. Please stay in touch. That's my email address. Thank you very, very much for listening.